Welcome to the Wolverine Digest Podcast, the best spot for objective and authentic coverage of Michigan athletics. If you want open dialogue, honest opinions, and in-depth coverage of the maize and blue, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's your host, Brandon Brown, joined as always by Chris Breiler.
I was going to start by saying go blue.
There it is. Had to have it today, right? Had to.
Absolutely. Hopefully, really hoping that's something that we can play on Monday.
Yeah, you and me both, man. Obviously, today kicks off Ohio State week. It was a circus today for media day. They had to bring out the risers, double-decker camera crews. I got more footage of Stoney's back than I did Jim Harbaugh's face because he kept sliding and standing in front of me. So that was cool.
Phenomenal.
Crowded, lots of people there. People got there early. And Jim Harbaugh did do a little bit of a podium appearance and kind of had a couple good things to say. And then he turned it over to Sherrone Moore. And then we got 3 players today too. Because we usually do get players on Monday, but we won't have anything on Wednesday, giving everybody the day off, I guess, because it's the day before Thanksgiving. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, so obviously a huge week for a million reasons that everybody knows about at this point. And no Jim Harbaugh. And I do think it's a bigger deal. I will get into that with my burning questions a little later on, so hopefully you have some thoughts on that. But we haven't even talked about Maryland yet. We didn't have a show on Saturday. I know you were running around like a crazy person down there. How was the experience in College Park? Shot some photos. Michigan did get a win. It didn't look like it didn't look like what a lot of people thought it was going to look like, but you had a firsthand up close view. What were your thoughts from Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, it was a great football game. I think Michigan fans were maybe a little bit more on edge than what they anticipated. I will say just a couple of things about the game. One, and I think I put it out on social media, it genuinely felt like almost like a neutral site type game. Like half of that stadium was maize and blue. There's no question about it. The one side of the stadium that was in the sun, nice and warm over there for the Wolverine faithful.
Lots of Michigan folks in the DMV, no doubt about it. Yes.
So Michigan fans traveled out well. Got to meet a couple people that watch the podcast religiously, take some photos. So it's always great to be able to do that type of thing. And I know that people, they were conflicted because obviously you're excited that Michigan gets win number 1,000, but there were some people that looked at that game and they were concerned about the fact that Michigan was in a dogfight with Maryland. I think, Michigan was, 19.5 point favorites going into the game. I think it started out at 21.5 earlier in the week and then went down through the week. But in any event, Michigan was expected to win that game convincingly, and it was a full 4-quarter battle. And some people took issue with that. For me, and I saw a handful of people bring it up after the game, and it was what was going through my mind as Michigan was battling is I look back to last year and the game against Illinois in Michigan Stadium right before Ohio State. And, that was a game that Michigan was heavily favored to win, expected to win big, and it was a full 4-quarter battle, and Michigan escaped on a Jake Moody game-winning field goal. I mean, that was really what kept Michigan's season on track. And yeah, sure, there's some things to be slightly concerned about from what we saw on Saturday, but overall, I think that's a good thing for a team to experience, particularly going into a game against Ohio State, and particularly when you haven't really been challenged all that much, throughout the entire year. It's good to be in a dogfight. It's good to figure out what you're made of in those situations. And hats off to a handful of players that really responded big time. Mike Sainer he's always in the right place at the right time, always making the big plays when Michigan needs it most. Another guy who's really come on in the latter part of the season. We saw it a couple weekends ago at Penn State. Certainly saw it at Maryland. Kenneth Grant has just been absolutely dominant in the middle. On3 put out their Heisman Trophy. I don't know if it was a projection or what it is. And I saw Michigan Wolverine was on there. I scanned down to see who it was at number 10. Saw the Block M. It was Kenneth Grant. Kenneth Grant was on On3's Heisman Trophy candidate list after week 11. So, wow. Look, I thought overall the game was great. It was nice to see Michigan challenge. They responded well. There's some things that obviously we're a little bit concerned about, but overall, a great experience, and it was awesome. You could tell that the team was prepared for it. The fans were prepared for it. To see, these guys reach 1,000 wins, to hit such an incredible milestone. I think it was just, it's a part of college football history, and it was really cool to see them celebrate on the field. And for anybody who was there, fans that came out for the game, that's something you'll be able to remember forever.
1,000 wins, obviously no small feat. We talked about that last week. The Packers have 700 something. Valdosta High School has 950 or whatever the number is, and there's Michigan with 1,000. Literally the most wins in the sport. That is pretty cool. Jim Harbaugh didn't get a chance to see it personally either, which is just weird at this point. Obviously, he's not going to be there this Saturday either. But the players seem locked in. Sherrone Moore is very, very sharp. Everybody has the utmost confidence in him. And he spoke about that today a little bit. And obviously this one on Saturday is monstrous. I mean, it's huge. And yeah, the game didn't go how we thought it would. If you remember correctly, all three of us, you, me, and Trent, all had Maryland scoring just 10 points. They scored 24. So much more productive than we thought they would be. And you had Michigan scoring 42. I had them scoring 41, and Trent had them scoring 38. And they only scored 31. So that makes for a much closer game, 31-24. But it is a win. And it's win number 1,000, and it's 11-0. And now it's all the marbles for Saturday. And, I mean, dude, there's been a couple times over the last couple of years where you and I have talked about just how iconic these meetings are at the end of November. And this one's now the biggest yet. I mean, it's Ohio State number 2, Michigan number 3, and that number really doesn't matter right now. It's going to, it'll play itself out on Saturday. But we did see Ohio State back into the playoff last year after losing to Michigan and not even playing in the conference championship game. Whoever wins, by the way, will take on Iowa. So all you got to do is score 15 points and you win a Big Ten title. So that's cool. And so we'll see what that looks like. We'll see what that looks like on Saturday. But yeah, I did find myself, and we talked about this today. The word wasn't worry. You weren't like worried watching the Maryland game, but there was a little bit like, if this team was not Maryland, if it wasn't Mike Loxley, who seems to kind of just come up short of expectations often, it could have been worrisome. I never felt like Michigan was going to lose, but I was like, something feels a little bit off today in a couple different spots.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I mean, Trent was texting me throughout the game, and, it seemed like he was a little concerned at one point. And I just, even being there in the stadium, I never actually felt like Michigan was going to lose. And every time it seemed like Maryland was going to have a shot to get themselves back in the game, potentially take a lead, Michigan just continued to make big play after big play. And it just felt like that was always going to be the case. And so I remember going into the game, my biggest concern was, obviously you have the athleticism of Tagovailoa, and I think that was on display. They were trying to get to him. They were getting good pressure on him, but he's really good at getting out of the pocket and making things happen. That's something different that I think you're going to see this weekend against Kyle McCord. He really doesn't bring that element. And so I think that's certainly going to help the Michigan pass rush quite a bit. But my biggest concern going into the game was injury and getting out fully healthy and ready for this game. And we saw Roman Wilson go down, Mike Barrett go down, Miles Hinton go down, JJ McCarthy limping quite a bit. And so, this is the point of the year where you start to get a lot of mileage on these guys, and you're heading into the biggest game of the year. And I do think that there's some question marks health-wise. We'll probably get into that a little bit later in the show, but Yeah, again, just to go back to reiterate what I said at the beginning of the show, you need these sometimes. You need to be in a dogfight. You need to figure out what you're made of. And, it happened last year, right before going into Columbus. Michigan, what was it? Were they down or was it a tie game when Moody hit that field goal? I can't remember exactly what the score was, but either way, they needed the field goal to win it. Followed it up by going to Columbus.
That was to win it.
Yeah, that was to win it, right?
Yeah.
So followed that up by going to Columbus and a dominant win. And so I don't really put too much bearing on what happened against Maryland for what's going to happen this weekend in Ann Arbor. I think it's two different types of opponents, two different types of scenarios. And I think the Wolverines, based on what we heard today, man, they're locked in. They understand what the opportunity is. And how crazy is it? Didn't really dawn on me until last night, but I started to think about it. All these guys that we've loved at this program for so long, you cover their recruitment. They come here. You kind of watch them go through the growth process. So many of these guys are going to play their last game in Michigan Stadium this Saturday. You're talking about guys like Zach Zinner, Trevor Keegan, Blake Corum, Mike Sainristil. I mean, these are guys that mean so much to this Michigan football program. For it to be their last game in Michigan Stadium on Saturday, it's just kind of crazy to me. It's a little bit bittersweet, and you hope they really, like Blake Corum said today, you go out with a bang. I mean, Corum was pretty upfront about, like, look, this is my last time playing in the big house. And, he didn't have the opportunity to really compete in this rivalry in 2021. And last year he was battling injuries in both years. Now we get a fully healthy Blake Corum going into the game, last game in the big house, birthday on Saturday. I feel like he's primed for a big game.
Yeah. Mike Barrett, Chris Jenkins. I mean, these are staples to what Michigan has done over the last 3 years, all getting ready to trot it out there for the last time. And
no doubt.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool today that Blake, I talked to you about it while we were there. He mentioned 5-6 reasons why it was going to be incredible on Saturday and humbly did not bring up his birthday. Didn't even, he's got a room full of people, didn't even bring it up. I mean, again, kind of speaks to the way these dudes are wired and why it's going to be special. He didn't make it about himself at all, but it's impossible not to realize, like, as Blake Corum, damn, dude, this is the last time. This is the last go round in the big house. Like, it's poetically written for him to have a great day after missing last year almost completely. I think he did carry it once maybe, and the year before that he was dinged up as well, and the year before that, true freshman, obviously. So man,
before that they didn't play 2020. So.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they didn't even play the Buckeyes. So yeah, he's primed and ready. And it is poetically written for him to have a phenomenal day, and I hope he does, man. Like, he's just been chomping at the bit, waiting to get out there against that team, and no better place to do it than in the big house on his birthday, senior day, last game he'll play in that venue. Pretty special. I just wanted to talk about a couple things that I jotted down from my 3 up, 3 down immediately after the game. One, that freaking sucks, man. It was an incredible run. I think if you had said they'd make it however many weeks, we probably wouldn't have guessed to week 11. But somebody finally scored in the third quarter against Michigan. That perfect run of coming out of halftime and dominating is no more. And I think overall, the defense just looked kind of porous at times. I mean, give credit to Tagovailoa. Like you said, he gets out of the pocket. He's like JJ Light. He's the same kind of player. Not a crazy, dual threat necessarily, but can run it, keep defenses honest, throw on the run. I mean, that one touchdown pass he had was a beautiful throw. I mean, he made some nice throws, even though he did have a couple picks as well. So, I mean, again, you were there, Chris. I mean, did you get any sense of, like, the defense was on its heels most of the day? I mean, when you look at the final score, they only win by 7. That's got to be kind of what it felt like.
Yeah, it felt like his mobility was a problem. And I saw Braden McGregor get close, Chris Jenkins get close a couple times, never quite able to get there. And then, we've talked about how good the secondary is all year. They did get burned a couple times. Will Johnson got burned. I can't remember where the other one came. It might have even been Mike Sainer still on one of the longer pass plays. It's kind of hard from the vantage point to remember exactly where those came from. But, some things that needed to be cleaned up. And again, it's, you're talking about a defense that has, not allowed a single third quarter point all season. That changed. They really haven't been burned too bad throughout the past game. And then you face a quarterback who, Tagovailoa, that's a seasoned guy. It's not like I think every quarterback Michigan has faced this year, if I recall correctly, is a first year starter. And I'd have to go through the list, but I believe every quarterback to that point had been relatively new, first year starter. And then you get a guy like Tagovailoa on the other side who is not only a veteran, but just phenomenal athlete, can make things happen on the fly. And I think it gave Michigan some fits. So it's, again, what's your mindset going to be after that game? Are you looking at it as, the defense is porous, there's some issues, that Ohio State's going to be able to take advantage of? Or, are you more of the mindset that you trust this veteran group of guys to get it corrected? They were battle tested in that game. They came out victorious, and now they go into the game 11-0, which, by the way, is such an incredible thing that I didn't realize. So since the year 2000, there's only 2 teams that have met 11-0 in the regular season. And it's been Michigan and Ohio State. And this will be the 3rd time it's happened in all of college football. Wow. It hasn't happened since the year 2000, except for Michigan, Ohio State. This is the 3rd time it's going to happen. I think it just really speaks to how incredible this rivalry is and how much there's usually at stake when these 2 teams meet. And when you factor in, the way that the playoff is going to change next year with 12 teams being a part of it, this is the last time. Not only is there so much riding on this, but this is the last time that this game, you hate to say that it's not going to mean as much, but the implication, the result of it, you'll be able to lose this game and still make the playoff and compete for a national championship moving forward. This is the last year that this game is going to mean as much as it means in terms of having an opportunity to play for a national championship. So this is just, you wait a year, every year for this to come, and it's finally here, and it looks exactly like we thought it was going to look. 2 teams in the top 4 in the college football playoff rankings, both undefeated, both looking like they could play for a national championship. And Blake Corum said it today. This is a championship game. This is for the Big Ten East Division title. This is, if these 2 teams were to meet in the national championship, nobody would question that they're the 2 best teams in the country. So it's incredible to be a fan and be a part of the rivalry.
I think I want to get there at about 5 a.m. on Saturday. Just get set up, get my computer posted up.
Take as much of that day to soak in as you possibly can. And, Big Noon Kickoff is going to be there. Barstool Sports is going to be set up. Unfortunately, College Game Day is going to be there as well. It's going to be really interesting to see how that crew is received in Ann Arbor. I can't believe they were even granted a permit to set up, but they were. I think they're going to be over by Ferry Field or something like that. But, that crew and that network has really led the charge against Michigan in terms of, trying to derail the season. You've had, guys on there saying Michigan should be banned from the Big Ten championship game. Paul Feinbaum saying he won't even recognize the Wolverines as national champions if they happen to win it. Reese Davis, referring to Michigan as cheaters and best. Oof. I've seen people try to, advocate for the boycott. Don't go there. But I've also seen people saying, no, go there and make a lot of fucking noise. Bring air horns. Don't let them talk. Be disruptive. And I think it's going to be a College Game Day that's worth keeping your eye on.
What are the signs going to say? It's going to be more about Game Day and ESPN.
I hope they're going to have to pixelate it out, blur it out, because I think there's going to be a lot of signs that are not so pleasant.
Yeah. My other, in hindsight now, I saw somebody asking about it in the comments as well. A huge bummer from Saturday was that Roman Wilson was knocked out of the game very early on, and that certainly hindered the passing game. I mean, that's JJ's go-to guy, whether it's on those short crossers or some of the deep balls that they've connected on. Sherrone Moore said it sounds like him, along with Ladarius Henderson and Miles Hinton, should all be good to go. He said obviously they have a full week of practice and treatment and getting ready, but it didn't sound like anything serious for any of them. So that's good. Roman Wilson will be back, and hopefully the lineman will be too. And then last but not least, I mean, I guess so far it's been specific to this game, although Drew Aller did have some running success against Michigan as well. Who the hell is this Billy Edwards guy with 3 touchdowns on the tush push? I know that play is damn near unstoppable. Michigan doesn't really run it. They'd rather turn around and give it to Blake Corum, which is pretty effective as well. But that's, Kyle McCord's a big dude. I mean, that's a momentum-saving play, and if a much better team like Ohio State can execute that whenever it pops up, that's something that has me a little bit concerned, but I don't know what you do about it. There's nothing you can do. Maryland obviously had that in the playbook. They went to it multiple times, and it worked every time. 3 touchdowns for that kid. He was not on anybody's scouting report, and there he is scoring 3 touchdowns. I don't know what that looks like against Ohio State, if they'll try to employ that or not. But that was clearly a negative for the day. Michigan had no answer for it, but that's not specific to Michigan. But it's one of the reasons that Maryland was able to stay in the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. You let an offense get in scoring position like that, and you put yourself in a tough position, and that's a tough place to stop any sort of play. But yeah, I don't know who the dude was. What was his name? I don't even know what the hell his name was. That was the only time he ever came in from what I was aware of.
I believe it was Billy Edwards. I may have even gotten it wrong, but
the game of his life, Billy Edwards. But yeah, I mean, it's, what do you do? What do you do if somebody's down on the 1 yard line, the 2 yard line, the goal line? You have a play like that. That's, even if you've got a lot of horses up front, that's going to be tough to defend.
Billy Edwards Jr., redshirt sophomore quarterback, 6'4", 225. Big dude. I mean, so that's they brought him in there to do that. I wrote an article probably a year ago now about the package that should be used with Alex Orji that would be even more unstoppable than Maryland's was, but I digress. The best kick returner on the planet does not get to play football at Michigan this year. I saw you snapped a couple pics of him again, so he was out there and in uniform, but still no. We're I mean, it's not even worth talking about at this point. We're heading into the last game of the season. Orji is he's not a factor. And
maybe it's the secret weapon.
Is that what it is, Chris? We're gonna see it this week.
It could be if you subscribe to the secret playbook. Hold your top plays back for this one game. Maybe we do see an Orji sighting or two on Saturday.
Yeah, Brian, you know what? Josh Wallace has been good, but he's clearly not the cover man that Will Johnson is. And Maryland recognized that, and Ohio State has much better receivers to try to challenge. I mean, I would assume that Will Johnson is going to go wherever Marvin Harrison Jr. goes, but if there's ever a time where he's not on him or they're in a zone concept, so Will doesn't travel, I mean, that's an automatic. If I'm Kyle McCord, throw it to 18, get it out there.
I feel like granted, I don't know nearly as much as the guys who are going to call the shots on Saturday, but I feel like I don't know that you can go zone, at least not with Marvin Harrison Jr. I think you got to keep a body on him at all times, probably Will Johnson. But yeah, I mean, there was no doubt that the Michigan secondary made some mistakes on Saturday that let Maryland get into good position, put some points on the board. But then again, Mike Sainer still shows up. 2 interceptions, nearly had another pick six. He's got 5 interceptions on the year, by the way. He's just having an incredible season. Michigan's got 14 total. I think they're going to play opportunistic on Saturday. And I think given how, when that Michigan defense plays a quarterback that's not very mobile, and Kyle McCord is not very mobile, I think the defensive front's going to be able to get some pressure on him. I think it's going to force him into making some mistakes, and I think the Michigan secondary is going to make him pay. We've seen Kyle McCord struggle to be on target against far lesser defensive units. We saw it against Indiana. We saw it against a few other teams. He's not necessarily sharp when he comes out of the gate, and I think if Michigan can make him pay for it early, it's going to make for a long day. But yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr., that's going to be a problem. And then you've got some other options, some other weapons as well.
I'm going to put you on the spot right now, Chris. This is not one of my burning questions. Give me your prediction for Marvin's stat line on Saturday.
I think he goes 6 receptions for 98 yards and a touchdown.
It's not, it'd be a rather pedestrian day for him, but that's how good he is, man.
Yeah, it's supposed to be cold, chilly, like in the high 20s, chance of snow. I think there's like a 30 or 40% chance of snow. So, anytime you get that type of weather, to me, that screams ground game, Michigan football, win it in the trenches. I'm just, Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to get his, but if they can limit him to right around 100 yards and 1 touchdown, I think that'll be a pretty good afternoon for Michigan.
By the way, it's becoming more and more incredible how well Michigan beat Ohio State's ass over the last couple of years because C.J. Stroud is tearing up the NFL. Just want to throw that out there real quick. Yeah. And Kyle McCord is not C.J. Stroud. So that's part of what I'm going to get into a little bit with my I have an article I plan on writing tomorrow probably. The 5 reasons why I think Michigan wins on Saturday, and that's front and center, that quarterback showdown. And so we'll get into that a little bit later on. For now, though, Chris, I'm going to apologize in advance because you're probably going to get the echo back here for a moment. But
boy.
We've got to do it for just a minute at least. It's everybody's favorite segment.
This f***ing guy.
There's probably quite a few that you could pick.
This f***ing guy.
I mean, I don't know. There always is, and there's always some.
This fucking guy.
There's always some layups. I mean, you could go with Feinbaum damn near every week. I don't know. I hope I didn't steal your thunder. I don't know, but you could do that every week with him.
Every week.
Or pick your other favorite ESPN analyst, basically, at this point.
Yeah.
This fucking guy.
But Chris, would you like to get us started with our famed TFG?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and kick it off. And I really even hate to bring this guy up and this team up because they're both so irrelevant. You know what I mean? We're going into Ohio State weekend. Two teams competing for a national championship, just playing elite level football. And it kind of pains me to have to talk about a trash program and a not so good head coach. I'm going to talk about Harlan Barnett. After I think they beat Indiana. They won the golden spit bucket or whatever the hell trash trophy that is. And then in his post-game press conference, decided to once again mention Michigan because that's probably the only way, his only path to relevance is talking about Michigan. Because outside of that, you just have a not very good head coach with a terrible, terrible team. So he comes out and he says, gives credit to Indiana, about how good they are in game and stealing signs and how they're aware of that when it comes to Indiana. And then he made some sort of comment. I can't remember what it was word for word. He's like, Indiana is elite at stealing signs in game. And then some teams become elite doing it other ways. And he sort of smirked when he said it. And obviously he was taking a shot at Michigan. And I don't know what it is. Look, I watched that video and I can see why the team's not that's just not a guy that I would want to play. No. I mean, take the Michigan State thing off. Like the guy kind of reminds me of like Steve Urkel with a headset. Just not a very motivating coach. I think he kind of came off as a nerd. He came off a little bit desperate. And personally, I hope Michigan State signs him to be the head coach forever because, we see what the results are. But for that reason, Harlan Barnett is my TFG of the week. But again, hate mentioning that coach, hate mentioning that team because they're so damn irrelevant this time of year.
Not exactly winning one for the Gipper over there with that guy.
No.
Yeah, no.
I've never heard him talk before. I didn't honestly until Mel Tucker got fired for phone sex. I didn't even know who Harlan Barnett was. And since he stepped into that role, I've kind of heard the name, but I've never heard him talk before. That clip was the first time I've ever heard him speak. And my God, it all makes sense what's going on there in East Lansing. Like I said, I hope they hire him and keep him forever.
You just said that. I still don't think I've heard him talk. I saw a photo with the caption under it, but I have not heard him speak it.
Do you remember when Dave Chappelle did that skit where he was trying to be Tiger Woods, and he said for shizzle?
Do I remember it? For shizzle, I sure do.
That's how he came off. Very for shizzle. So yeah, in any event, he's my TFG of the week.
You look sick, you pasty bastard. Anyway. All right. Well, mine is, and I'm going to do this. This is twofold. For my Lions fans out there, just a phenomenal comeback. Lions moved to 8-2. What a beautiful, beautiful Sunday afternoon that was. And since it's the week of the game, my TFG is one Justin Fields. Picked up a first down in the fourth quarter, decided to do a little dance over on the sideline, and then proceeded to get punked the rest of the game and took a L, which culminated with Aiden Hutchinson blasting the football out of his hand. It goes out of the back of the end zone to give the Lions 2 points and a safety and a big dub against the Bears, which, I mean, dude, nobody had the Bears picked to even be in that game at home, and Justin Fields actually played a pretty good game throughout. He was dangerous with his legs. I think he had over 100 yards rushing, kind of like what we just talked about with Talia. Kind of getting there, but couldn't get him on the ground, couldn't quite get home, and then Aiden makes the huge play at the end when they needed it most. And Trevor, that's awesome. I heard multiple people on the radio today talking about what kind of an environment that was there at Ford Field, and I bet it was incredible. And as a diehard Lions fan, man, beautiful thing to see that 8-2 record next to their name. Hopefully they can get to 9-2 on Thanksgiving, everybody's favorite tradition coming up on Thursday. So I'll go with Justin Fields. You can't do a dance when you're the Bears and your head coach is Matt Eberflus. Just get back to the huddle and hope you can hold on, man. You can't be doing that. Obviously, it fell apart down the stretch. Thank you to Matt Eberflus. They basically stopped running Fields towards the end of the game when it was working all day long. I'm not really sure, but hey, we'll take it as a Lions fanhood and fandom.
And hopefully it's a good omen for Saturday, because a former Wolverine took out a former Buckeye in incredible fashion to win the game. So you love to see that.
Yeah, tweeted that immediately. I said, how about them Lions, and how fitting on this week that it was Hutchinson stripping Fields for the game winner. Yeah, just awesome. Great to see. And yeah, hopefully it was a sign of things to come, because it was it was a lot of fun in Detroit, I'm sure, for whoever was at that game. And it was packed, man. Like the crowd was incredible. You can tell on TV, but hearing people talk about it who were actually there. Chris, I know you put up a photo from your vantage point. Do you think it was really half and half, like half Michigan fans in Maryland?
That's I 100% crazy. Think it was half. It was at least half and half. I mean, they had one side of the stadium pretty much on lockdown, and then as you kind of got midway through, it sort of sprinkled out, and the Maryland fans gathered. But yeah, Michigan showed up and traveled to that game real strong, and there were chants of, even before the clock hit 0, it ranged from we love Harbaugh to beat Ohio. I mean, chants in that stadium. It was just it was cool to be a part of, man. It really felt like you were, even though you were away from home, you felt like home. I got the chance to speak to Blake Corum's dad for a while before the game and chop it up a little bit. And, you just see all the familiar faces, all the fans that typically travel that you see at all the games, home and away. It was cool, man. It was a neat environment.
Very, very cool. All right.
Well, say about that stadium, not impressive. Not an impressive stadium. Press box was like meh. The stands meh. The whole environment kind of meh.
Homeboy.
I thought the campus was. I expected more from Maryland's campus than what I got when I was there.
Homeboy needs to dump a few more Under Armour dollars into it. That's
you got to put some money into that stadium. Yeah, I mean the steps going down to the field were like uneven concrete. It was, not ideal. It really makes you appreciate. That's the other thing, man. Getting, covering a program like the University of Michigan, getting to go, most Saturdays into Michigan Stadium. You really just appreciate, how incredible it is to be a part of, this football program and this tradition here. How was the food at halftime? I don't know. I didn't go up. I sat down on the bench and got some sun, but I can tell you what they were serving before the game, which was Chick-fil-A. That was probably the highlight. I think they also served Chick-fil-A for lunch, but they had Chick-fil-A breakfast. So I got a chicken, biscuit breakfast sandwich to kick my day off, which is always good. Load up on the carbs, and that was enough to power me through the day until I got back to the hotel.
Look at you, not usually an eater in the morning.
Not usually an eater, but I'll say this: I got up at 3:00 in the morning to get to the airport at like 4, so I could be there 2 hours early before my flight at 6. Got in at 7:30, dropped my luggage off at the hotel, then took an Uber out to the stadium, got to the stadium like 3 hours early. I was hurting, man. That was a lengthy day. And then, you turn right around, you fly back, 3-hour layover in Chicago before I got home. It's part of the grind, man. I love it.
Yeah, no doubt. Worst press box in the Big Ten, Penn State. Worst food in the Big Ten, Michigan State, not close.
Yeah. That press box at Penn State is dangerous. What is it? Still terrible. I was down on the field, but I remember
exactly the same uneven floors, hyperextended knees and shit. Old people falling. It's bad.
Yeah, wires hanging out of the drop ceiling. Like it was. Yeah. There's some history there, so you kind of learn to take it and appreciate it, but you got to make some updates.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. All right, here we go. Burning questions for the final half of the show. Should get us out of here at a pretty good time tonight. Do you want to get us going, or do you want me? Actually, I'm going to start because we've already kind of done this. We did a good discussion about this, but I'm gonna quantify it in a way that I often do on burning questions, Chris. And I saw your stat line. I wrote it down right here. 6 grabs for 98 yards and a touchdown for Mr. Marvin Harrison Jr. What does that do for your 1 through 10 worry scale? How worried are you about Marvin Harrison Jr. on Saturday, 1 through 10?
I mean, he's the biggest worry I have for sure. I put my worry level at like an 8.
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
We saw the corners get burned a little bit. We obviously know he's an elite talent. So even if you're playing good defense, he can still go and make a play. The caveat here is, how good is Kyle McCord going to be? And I've watched a lot of Ohio State football this year, trying to just stay up on what they're doing. And, there's some times where he's really on target, and there's other times where Marvin Harrison has to come up and make an incredible catch, or he can't even get to the ball because McCord's so far off target. So my worry level is still at an 8, because, you're talking about a first round draft pick, somebody who's, a Heisman Trophy favorite. He's going to get his on Saturday. To completely shut him down is impossible, but you got to make sure that you don't let him get into a rhythm that could cause for a long afternoon.
He can wreck a game. He's good enough to take over a game and wreck a game. And you hate to even think about it, but you hear about it every year. Heisman moment type thing. No bigger, better stage for a guy like that to show out and really put the team on his back. I have all the faith in the world in Will Johnson, but like I said, you don't. I would guess he's not going to be on him 100% of the snaps. I just don't. That Michigan doesn't play man to man exclusively. Maybe they do change that up a little bit this week, given the fact that they have a receiver like that to take care of. But you're right. You're not going to shut him out. He's just too good. You just hope he doesn't take over and do some crazy stuff where he finishes with some monster line that you just couldn't control him.
Just bring your free set. Keep Will Johnson on him all the time, and then maybe bring Makari Page over and have him shadow. I mean, double team the dude all day and let everybody else go man to man and see what happens.
Yeah,
you're not going to do that. Maybe, but that's the kind of talent that he is.
Let Will Johnson break aggressively on all, short and comeback routes because he's got help over the top. I mean, Makari Page can go toe-to-toe with him when it comes to size and length. It's not the worst idea, but then, that changes what Michigan does in a lot of other ways. So, you're not going to do that on every play, but, situationally, they got a 3rd and 9, 2nd and 1 shot play type downs. You got to watch him, dude. He's a pro, and he can hurt you if you let him. So I'm at an 8 as well. That's exactly the number I had in my head, and it could be contained in other ways. You get to McCord all day long, and he'll render him useless out there. But I don't think that's going to happen on every play. So he's worrisome for sure.
Yeah. All right, man. We've seen this a little bit, and I take issue with it a little bit. Not so much after Penn State because that was such a big game for Michigan, road environment, the way that they won. Saw it a little bit after Penn State, but it really started to come out after Maryland, where you had some segment of the Michigan fan base questioning Sherrone Moore in the head coaching role. Send him back to OC, let him just focus on that. Maybe move Mike Hart over to the head coaching role. I saw you have all these people with different ideas. I'll share my thoughts on it, but I'm going to ask you first. How would you rate Sherrone Moore's head job as a head coach so far? First one against Bowling Green, and then you got Penn State and Maryland. How would you rate him 1 through 10?
This is a really good question, and I actually wanted to ask Sherrone today. It was so packed in there, though. I was, Dave had he's like, you're 8th in the queue, and I'm like,
by the way, is Dave Abloff like hitting the gym? The dude was like standing holding his. I didn't realize it till I went back and watched the video, but the biceps on that man are out of control. Somebody needs to check, make him do a test, check Dave Abloff, because I don't know what he's doing in the weight room, but dude's looking jacked these days.
Pretty sure he does work out pretty aggressively. I think that's always been kind of part of his deal, but
the python
he was swole today, huh?
Yeah, he looked a little aggressive over there. He was in a good mood, but flexing with the long sleeve shirt on. That's a bigger version of Dave than what I remember.
You know what, Brandon? Sorry, I thought it was Brady's comment. It's hard to argue with the rationale here, the reasoning. He got Michigan to this point undefeated. That's an A+. He's done every single thing he's supposed to. I don't quite adhere to that exactly, but that's a pretty good way to look at it. He went into Penn State on very little notice and got a dub. Took care of Maryland, which everybody thought they would. Yeah, it was a little closer, so maybe, if you're going to go series by series and call by call, maybe it's not an A+. But Michigan is sitting at 11-0, and Jim Harbaugh has missed 5 games this year. That's noteworthy. So, Brandon, I can appreciate that comment. What I wanted to ask Sherrone today was because he said something along the lines of, just when it comes to like the game management situations and the situational calls and clock management and talking to the refs, he was kind of talking about all these things he doesn't typically do. And he said something along the lines of, trying to do it like Jim. And it got me thinking, like, is that what he's doing? Like, is he going in just trying to be like Harbaugh, or is he doing it in his own way, or is it a mixture of the two? I wanted to ask him kind of like that. Like, are you trying to emulate, like, okay, in this situation, I would probably go for it, but I know for a fact Jim doesn't because we've had this before. And to me, that's not ideal. I think he should do what he would do. You don't want a guy second guessing himself or thinking like, well, I would go for this, but I don't think Harbaugh would, so I'm going to punt it, or I'm going to kick the field goal, or I'm going to do this or do that. So I would have liked to ask him a question like that. I'm not sure he would. Sherrone's not awesome at giving straight answers. That's not really his thing. But I'd give him like an A-, B+. I mean, I think there were times in that game against Maryland. I talked to you about it today as we were walking out. I'm like, dude, let JJ throw the ball. Like, I know it wasn't his best day, but like Maryland was selling out to stop the run, and it worked a couple of times. And obviously the 32 straight runs against Penn State, I'm just like, what are we doing? I had multiple people text me like, why is he not throwing the ball at all?
Yeah.
Well, it worked and they won. I mean, like, to Brandon's point again, it's an A+ because they won every game he's coached and keep it moving. I don't think it's been perfect, but they have won every game. The players love him. They trust what he's doing. Hard to argue that he has a bad grade. Hard to argue that he shouldn't have a pretty good grade at this point.
Yeah, and I like that more on the letter grade. I would also be at an A- as well. The reason being is that, yeah, there's some things here and there that you'd like to see better, improved upon, especially, against Ohio State this weekend. But I just can't say enough about how good of a job he's done. And he's had to do it during Michigan's toughest stretch of the season. These last 3 games, everybody looked at the schedule and pointed to these games and said, this is where Michigan's really going to be tested. And we thought Jim Harbaugh was going to be leading the way. And it turns out it's Sherrone Moore. And when you lose a guy, and we heard it from the players, we heard it from the assistant coaches, we even heard it from Sherrone Moore. It's not like we're talking about Tom Allen here or Harlan Barnett, where if they're not on the sideline, it's going to be like, it doesn't matter anyway.
Right.
We're talking about Jim Harbaugh. This is a guy who, I've mentioned it before, everybody can see it. When he walks into a room, when he's somewhere, he just has a presence about him. You can tell when he's not there, it does have an impact. And Sherrone Morris had to step in at the toughest time of the season and had to make things work. And he's been able to do that. And so I give him all the credit in the world. Michigan is undefeated under his leadership. This is by far going to be the toughest test of his coaching career. And man, if Michigan wins this game, I think it just further solidifies my belief that he's going to be a head coach next year. Whether or not that's at Michigan or somewhere else, I don't know. But he'll be a head coach next year. Jim Harbaugh seems to subscribe to that idea as well. So I'll give him an A-. And I don't know if I caught it because I might have been fumbling around doing something with my phone during the press conference trying to get some content up. But didn't somebody ask Jim Harbaugh about the future and he reverted to the no one can be certain line? Do you remember that from the press conference? I'll have to go back and watch. But
it's not ringing a bell, but again, I may have been filming someone's sweater at that moment, so I'm not positive on that.
At the end of the day, I give Sherrone Moore an A-. I think he's done an incredible job. And again, you've had to do that. Name elite coaches: Kirby Smart, Nick Saban. Jim Harbaugh is up with them. When you lose a guy like that, it's a big deal. And he's done a phenomenal job in his absence.
Yeah, it's every coach wants their shot. I'm not sure any coach would take it this way. Like it's a rough spot to be thrust into, to have to take on Penn State on the road and then Ohio State.
Listen,
let me just figure it out.
You want it if you get the dub.
Yeah.
If you don't, then people are going to look at you and
always wonder.
That's what comes with it. Yeah.
Very similar question to my first one. 1 through 10, Chris, what is your worry level for one TreVeyon Henderson, who has looked fantastic since he came back from being a little dinged up? Well, I'll wait for your answer first, because He's
also
outstanding.
He has looked outstanding. I'm also going to put it at an 8.
Mm.
Between him and Marvin Harrison Jr., those are the things keeping me up at night this week. Those two guys, because if either one of them get in a rhythm, and you would use the phrase earlier, and I think it's accurate, they're both game wreckers. They're both the types of guys who can make plays that will change the course, the direction of a game. And so Michigan's going to have to do a phenomenal job up front, stay in their gaps, make sure that they don't let him get big chunk plays, don't let him get into a rhythm. If they can do that, I think they're going to be all right. But yeah, we've seen it this year, man. When he gets a seam, when he gets a little bit of space, he is quick, he is shifty, and he's hard to catch in the open field. And that could present a problem on Saturday if Michigan doesn't keep him in check. So I would put worry level for Henderson at an 8 as well, same level that I'm concerned with Marvin Harrison Jr.
I'm right there with you. I might even go 8.1 just to give him a little bit of an edge, because I think
what is this? Price is right.
Right. Lowest without going over, man. That's what we're shooting for here. Or highest without going over. I just think he's dude. I mean, he erases angles. I can just you picture him catching a little flare pass or something, and a guy missing one tackle, and it's a problem. And he's the running back, so he's obviously easier to get the ball to than Marvin Harrison. You just got to turn around and hand it to him. And if Michigan's not gap sound, if they're not where they're supposed to be, he can hit a seam and he's gone. I mean, like that's his ability. He's got home run speed, and he's healthy, and that's a bigger concern for me, I think, than Marvin Harrison. You can call me crazy if you want, but I do think that you can scheme ways to keep Harrison in check, and it's not as easy to get him the ball as it is to give TreVeyon Henderson multiple carries, little easy swing passes, screen game, option routes over them. Like, I love Junior Colson, not checking TreVeyon Henderson. He's just not. Mike Barrett, maybe, but Henderson is like, he's got like all world speed. He's a problem for linebackers out of the backfield. Maybe that's a Mikey Sainristil kind of thing. I don't know, but he worries me, man, because he's such a home run threat.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Switch gears a little bit to the Michigan offense. We heard from him today, and I've mentioned it a little bit over the last couple weeks here. It's something that I've noticed throughout the season. Of course, I'm talking about JJ McCarthy, whatever's going on with his leg. And I want to preface this by saying, I say this a lot. I don't want to speculate too much. And I alluded to the fact that he's got something going on with one of his ankles. I'm not exactly sure that it is an ankle injury. Could be a hip, could be a knee. I don't know exactly what it is, but there's something going on with one of his legs, and it's been going on now for a number of weeks. I remember it specifically against Indiana, remember it specifically against Penn State, and then after the Maryland game, there was a considerable limp as he was walking off the field. And I don't know how much that played a factor in what Sherrone Moore decided to do against Penn State, and kind of, maybe the lack of effectiveness we saw on Saturday, just over 50%, not what we're accustomed to from JJ McCarthy. But let me ask you this. What is your concern level with the injury? He talked about it today, said he's feeling fine, as great as he ever has. The treatment's A+. What is your concern level as far as whatever injury he's dealing with his leg?
It's funny because I feel like you've been way more locked into this, and maybe it's your field level and seeing him up close and watching him go through workouts and warm-ups and stuff. I didn't realize it was as big of a deal as it seems to be, because it does seem to, like, he was off of this last game. And when you're talking about your ankles and your feet and your shins, knees for quarterbacks, I mean, it affects the throwing angle so much. Do you know which leg it is?
I don't. Somebody else asked me that, and I can't remember. I'd have to go back and maybe look at some of the video that I shot, but I'm not going to speculate.
I feel like it was his left leg.
I was going to say left too, but I'm not exactly sure. But I know for a fact there is something going on.
Okay.
There's no doubt about it. And I remember it because, and I've actually got a shot of it from the Indiana game when he came up limping. He went over the sideline. I think he was trying to make something happen. I can't remember if he got sacked, but he got tackled pretty hard, and he came up limping. And Jim Harbaugh's reaction on the sideline was like, you could tell he knew it. It just wasn't great. It wasn't a good thing. And then again, saw it against Penn State. Definitely noticeable against Maryland when he was walking off the field. It's just there's something going on there. I don't know how bad it is, but he's dealing with something. And he was asked about it today during the press conference. Said he's feeling as good as he ever has, and the treatment is good. But there's an issue there.
Yeah, I mean, he played the entire games, so I can't put it too high. It's not like he's knocked out of the game and couldn't play, and he ran it a little bit against Maryland, not a lot. I would love for him to be full strength so he can be a complete, unknown weapon as a runner against Ohio State. But maybe that's where the worry is. Like, okay, he's fine in the pocket. If he's clean, he can throw. But if he's got to move out at all, or if the design run stuff, it's just not going to be working. Then that's got to be at least a 5 or a 6. I mean, if you take that away from what JJ McCarthy does, it's a huge part of his game. Probably more so in the off-schedule stuff, like where he breaks the pocket and he's wheeling around, and him and Roman Wilson stay connected. Colston Loveland's really good at moving with him. A.J. Barner has formed a nice chemistry. If he's not able to do that at a high level, then that's a problem. So I'd say like a 5 or a 6. And hopefully he's not just, blowing smoke when he says he feels great and it's, this time off has bbeen good and treatment's been good, but
well, he's certainly not going to come out on Monday and say, I feel like shit, and this could be an issue.
That's fair. That's fair.
I'm going to put my concern level at a 7. I'm going to put it at a 7. And reason being, because I feel like his mobility, same as what we saw with Tagovailoa, the ability to get out of the pocket, to scramble, to either, hurt a defense with your legs by running it or, by making a play on the fly. I just think that's a big part of what makes JJ McCarthy such a dangerous quarterback. And so if you take that element away, or that element is hindered in any way, plus the fact that if he takes a hit the wrong way and maybe, what is, a pain level of 4 or 5 now becomes a 7 or 8 for him for the remainder of the game, that's something that could change the course of a game. And so only because I've seen it now for several weeks going on, I'm concerned about it going into this game, because I do think it's going to change a little bit about the way he plays. Now, look, I also have no doubt that if it meant breaking a leg and not being able to play the remainder of the season, but winning this game, he will do it. He'll do everything and anything he needs to do to be able to win this game, just as every other Wolverine on this squad would do. But I just think whatever it is he's going through, I don't think he's going to be at 100%. And I think it's going to change the way that Michigan has to go about their business on Saturday. So I am a little bit concerned about that.
And I would say I would defer to you. I feel like you've been locked in on this longer and had a better view of it up close. I don't know if I even realized it was much of an issue until the Penn State game, when he came up limping hard. I mean, he had a hard limp at one point in that game, and you're thinking like, damn, I hope that's, just a little tweak or something. But if it had been there before and it's still there now, then that's concerning.
Yeah.
Blue Heart, look, Kenneth Grant can run for 340. He's
in the goddamn Heisman discussion. Have him do whatever.
I don't know if I want him checking
short yardage situations. Give him the ball, goal line. Talk about
with that
push.
I'll be all right with that. All right, here's kind of a fun one. Let's take the injury thing out of it. Chris. But I would like an NCAA overall rating for JJ McCarthy and Kyle McCord. Quarterback head-to-head, what are the overall ratings for JJ McCarthy and Kyle McCord?
Well, I think I got laughed at the last time we did this on JJ McCarthy, but I'm going to stick to it. I'm going to put him at I can't remember what I said before, but
it was high.
He's like a 94, 95.
Let me check my notes. I probably have it here. I just kind of write stuff down.
I mean, he's mid 90s for sure. He's got everything you want in a quarterback. He's got the arm strength. We know that he's accurate when he's fully healthy. Phenomenal athlete, can get out, burn a defense with his legs, and then all the intangibles, who he is as a person, his mental makeup. Yeah, mid 90s. There's no doubt about it.
Okay, we'll go.
Now,
95.
Kyle McCord,
are you cool with a 95?
I'm cool with 95. I'm cool with 95. Kyle McCord, I mean, like an 81, maybe.
Wow.
We'll give him an 81. We'll give him an 81.
So, I mean, 14 overall points better. That's at least 14 points then, right? It's the 2-touchdown win. That's what you're saying. At
least, yeah. That's how that works, right?
That's pretty good. I think I'd be right there with you with JJ, 95, 96. You start to think about the way those ratings work on that game, and it's like, where's the weakness in this game? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. That's it. Where is the weakness? If you're going through and you're loading the boxes, where's the biggest weakness in his game?
Yeah.
Hand
Biggest
size?
weakness? Hand size. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it might be his frame. He's just kind of slender. Like there's
go,
not
yeah.
much of a knock on him.
Yeah.
There's really not. And McCord, I might go a little higher, but not. I was thinking like 95 and 84, like 83, 84. Like so I think we're pretty close.
Not a dual threat. Isn't somebody going to hurt you with his legs?
No.
He's accurate sometimes. Sometimes he's not.
Seems to get a little rattled back there.
Yeah, he's got more size on JJ, I think. Not much.
A little bit. He's not a huge guy. It's funny, man. I remember when JJ talked about this today that him and Kyle McCord have been close. They were both.
Which I didn't even realize. It kind of threw me for a bit of a loop here when he said Kyle McCord. Kyle McCord, that's my guy.
He did say that's my guy. But I have very, very vivid memories of being at the Rivals 5-Star Challenge in Atlanta, and JJ looked like a twerp compared to the he's skinny now, but I mean we're talking when he was like a junior in high school, and he was standing next to like Kyle McCord and some of these other guys, and I was like, dude, he just does not look ready. Still had a whip for an arm, still could run, but I'm like, dude, if he gets hit, it is a wrap for him. And it's it's still not. You still don't want to ever see him get hit. I mean, there's some like, dude, I'd run Drew Aller 40 times a game and not even worry about that guy getting hurt. Like he's a horse. He's a horse. Yeah. JJ, you just don't feel that way about. And McCord's, kind of in between there. But he's not as mobile. So if he takes a hit, it's probably going to be a little more of a shot. So I don't, it's funny to hear. I mean, I look back in my phone sometimes, man, and my very first images of JJ at football camp, he looks like he's 10. Like it's wild. And he was committed to Michigan at the time. And, that does go back to some of his that sit down interview that you conducted with him and Donovan and Andrell back then, where he said, yeah, we'll talk about that later when you brought up the recruiting thing, because he wanted to go to Ohio State. He said that today. I was an Ohio State guy. They chose McCord basically over JJ. That's pretty much how it went down.
Yeah.
It clearly looks like the wrong decision at this point, but I could see it back then. Physically, I could see it. But JJ's always had all those intangibles and all the arm talent in the world, and he's a winner, and he's a worker, and all that stuff is super valuable. So anyway, 95, 82-ish, 81, 83, somewhere in there. All right, I like it.
I mean, listen, if it was a secret ballot and every Ohio State coach, including Ryan Day, could go into a room and push a button.
I know where this is going.
JJ or Kyle McCord, I find a hard time believing that anybody on that staff would take Kyle McCord over JJ McCarthy.
I just had like a vision of Ryan Day being in there, like ready to push the JJ button, and then the curtains fall, and he's like, "What?" Like it was a setup the whole time. Hilarious. But yeah, no, I think you're right. Like cut the bullshit. I know he's on your team for real, but like you'd take JJ. You would.
And the reason I know that is because there's not a chance in hell I would trade for Kyle McCord. So that's kind of where I'm at. That's not biased. That's just I understand what kind of guy JJ is, and hate to keep riding the JJ train here with my next question, but I'm going to do it. We talked about, or I mentioned earlier in the show that a lot of guys are going to be playing their last game at Michigan Stadium this Saturday. Mike Sainer still, Blake Corum, Chris Jenkins, Mike Barrett, Trevor Keegan, Zach Zinner, it's just so many guys, Cornelius Johnson, that have meant a lot to this program. There's also a chance that it's JJ McCarthy's last game at Michigan Stadium on Saturday. I'm going to ask you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, don't ask it, dude. I know.
I'm going to ask you. On a scale from 1 to 5.
Okay.
On a scale from 1 to 5.
New scale.
What is your confidence level that JJ McCarthy returns to Ann Arbor next year?
Well, I'll tell you what. This Saturday's game is going to affect my answer in a big way. If they win again, win another Big Ten title, go back to the playoff for a third year in a row, even if they don't win the whole damn thing, I think that would be, he's being projected anywhere from number 5 to number 15, 20, first round pick. He's a first round pick. It'd be hard to come back and try to do it all again with all the pieces that you're losing next year, uncertainty surrounding the program and Jim Harbaugh with the scandals and everything, the change in the playoff. I mean, it would be, there's a lot that says, you know what, JJ, you're forever a legend. You can ride off into the sunset and be in that 9 is enshrined, dude. Like it's your work here is done. Like so many people would be fine with that. So I'll say, I'll say like a 2.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of things. Like he loves Michigan. He's killing it in NIL. He loves being on, the quarterback of this team, but there's just a lot of things that make it an easier decision to, head off on into the next level. I'll say 2.
That's the number I have. I was at a solid 2, and I agree that I think part of how the rest of the season plays out is going to have an impact on that. The guy who romanticizes things in me wants to say, but he wants to be a captain here. He wants to return. He wants to go out with the class he came in with, especially if, look, I know Donovan Edwards was adamant that he was going pro after this year going into the season, but it seems like Donovan Edwards could use another year at Michigan. We'll see how that turns out.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a quarterback that's projected to go in the first round. He's accomplished a lot at the University of Michigan. If they get a win, they go to the playoffs. You win another Big Ten championship. It feels like all signs would be pointing toward, him declaring for the NFL draft. And again, like we talked about this before, you talk about all the guys that you're for sure you're already going to lose. The Mike Sainristills, the Zach Zinners, the Blake Corums, guys that mean so much, not just on the field, but in the locker room. You also add JJ McCarthy into that mix, and next year becomes a lot more, you can kind of shrug and say, I'm not sure what kind of year it's going to be, because you lose all that and you add USC, Oregon, Texas, Quinn Ewers sounds like he's coming back. Who knows what's happening with Jim Harbaugh? There's a lot up in the air when you look at next year. And I feel like that's part of why this season has felt like everything was just building to this year and to this moment. And this was sort of the team that was supposed to get it done. So I'm going to go with a 2. I think it's more likely at this point that he goes pro next year. But if I'm leading with my heart, I'm at a solid 5 that he comes back.
Yeah, dude, if he wins again Saturday, he's 3-0 against the Buckeyes. Yeah. He's going to have 3 Big Ten championships. He's going to get another run at the playoff. It's hard to determine what happens there because we don't know who's going to be in there yet. But Michigan's got as good a shot as anybody to win the whole damn thing this year. And then he can, that I would assume that would elevate his draft stock even more. So dude, he's a top 15 pick. Even in this loaded quarterback draft, he's still going pretty high.
Right. And then if you're one of these NFL executives, sit down in a room with him, have a conversation with him. It's over.
He'll climb the boards just off interviews alone.
You got Caleb Williams over there with his nails painted, saying,
crying.
Everybody wants to be in my shoes. Yeah. And then JJ McCarthy comes walking in with like a halo around him. And it's like, we're drafting him. We have to draft him.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to ask you that. If JJ's not a 99 on your scale, is there anybody who is? Is Caleb Williams a 99 in ability?
Hell no.
I know you don't care for him necessarily, but
no, I put JJ right on the same level with Caleb Williams, Michael Penix, like all those guys. I think they're all right around the same level. We've talked about this before. Put JJ in Washington's offense. What do you think it looks like? Put him out at USC. What do you think it looks like? Put Michael Penix in Ann Arbor. What do you think those numbers look like? Is it different? And I think the answer is yes. So
is Marvin Harrison in 99?
Ooh. Yeah. He's one of those, generational type wide receiver, even I think was it Mike Sainristil called him the prototypical type wide receiver. Everything you would want in a wide out. Like, I don't think JJ really has any weaknesses other than his size. Marvin Harrison Jr.'s got size. He's got speed. He's got it. Like, there is nothing that you would really change about what he brings to the table. So yeah, Eric Miller, exactly. He's a unicorn. He's a once in a generation type wide receiver. So I'd put him at a 99. Yeah. Look at that. Look at me giving a little bit of love to the Buckeye.
You know who else I think you could put in the 99 discussion? Zach Zinner.
Zach
Zach
Zinner.
Zinner would be in the
Kenneth
discussion.
Grant.
Zach Zinner would be in the discussion for 99. He's so solid. All right.
Yeah, okay, let me ask you, since we're on the topic, where would you put Blake Corum? What's his rating?
Well, if you think, actually, we did this. Before the season started, you had Blake Corum at an 89.
What a dick.
And you had Donovan Edwards at a 91.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I also think I predicted Donovan Edwards to have more rushing yards this year.
I believe you did.
My bad.
Sorry, everybody. Yeah, it's funny how I just like as we're going, I just kind of randomly write stuff down. So I got to look back.
I mean, I would certainly change that now. I would put Blake Corum at like a 91.
I was gonna say like 92. Yeah, that's kind of where my mind went. I mean,
not
not a lot of weaknesses, but he's not a top 5 pick like Bijan Robinson or something.
Right.
You know?
Top end speed is not quite there. He can get caught from behind, but toughness is absolutely there. The the shake and shimmy and the juke and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that's there. He plays in what a dick. Can play in between the tackles, can get out to the edge. So yeah, I'd put him at a solid 91. Look at that. What did I have him before? A what? An 80?
89. That's not that different.
Yes. All right. So I bump him up a couple points.
That's not that different. You had Junior Colson as an 89. You had Will Johnson at 95.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Had Ernest Hausman. Oh, we had an Ernest Hausman discussion because he was new. We had him at an 83. Yeah, we did. We've done the. We had only one guy at a 99 speed. That was Roman Wilson, which that probably. I don't know. I don't think Roman Wilson's the fastest player in the country, but he's up there. He's up there.
Yeah.
All right. We've now seen no Harbaugh for 2 big games. I mean, obviously he missed the 3 at the beginning of the season, but on the road, Penn State, Purdue, and now obviously he won't be there for Ohio State. Huge game. And someone asked JJ about that today. As a former quarterback, he's kind of JJ's guy over there. You could make an argument, I don't know statistically, but JJ just looked off these last 2 games. He was kind of missing guys here and there, and maybe it's that ankle like we just talked about. So we've now seen Harbaugh not on the sidelines for 2 games, and the biggest one coming up on Saturday. How big of a deal is it? How big of a deal is it that there's no Jim Harbaugh on Saturday?
All right, well, I'm going to combine your question with my question.
Okay.
Because my question is, how much does it take away from the rivalry game this weekend that Jim Harbaugh isn't there? How big of a deal is it? How much does it take away from the rivalry? I think it's a big deal, man.
Yeah,
I think it's a big deal. He has spent so much time trying to build this program to what it's become this year. And you look at how tough the road was against Ohio State, and he was winning 10 games, and people were still calling for his job because he couldn't beat the Buckeyes. And he's turned it around, right? Yeah, reluctantly raised my. I mean, 2020 was not a good year, but in any event, he turned things around. He corrected. He righted the ship. He brought the right people in. Connor Stallions notwithstanding, he did what he had to do to get this program where it needs to be. And the fact that there is so much riding on this game, he's got his quarterback, he's got all of his guys, he's got the seniors, the veterans, the leaders, the captains, and he's not going to be there on the sideline. We're not going to see that midfield handshake or whatever the hell it would be between him and Ryan Day with all the bullshit going on. His absence is robbing the players of the experience and being able to play with their head coach on the sideline. It's robbing the fans of having Jim Harbaugh there. It's robbing him of having the experience. I think it's a big deal, man. I think not having him there, I mean, he's a Michigan guy. He understands this rivalry. I think it means a lot that he's not going to be.
It's a big deal. I mean, I love Sherrone Moore. I think he is going to be really good, but there's kind of a reason why there's a ladder like there is, and Jim Harbaugh climbed to the top of the ladder a long time ago. And he's been there at every stop he's had. And he rubs people the wrong way. And he didn't have very long tenures at some places, but he's now been at Michigan for a decade, and he has this program exactly how he wants it, and it's humming along. He's beaten Ohio State two years in a row, and it is a big deal that he's not there. And to your point, to your question, I mean, he wouldn't even say that he respected Ryan Day in Ohio State today. He wouldn't even let the words come out of his mouth.
Had a long pause when he thought about how he wanted to answer it. Yeah.
Which is different. It wasn't like that before. He would at least talk about like giving respect. They're a great team, great tradition. No, none of that. He just diverted. He didn't say anything inflammatory. He just talked about preparation and getting his team ready. He just kind of deflected, but that wasn't on accident. It was very deliberate. Joe Boo. Jay Harbaugh.
No, we're not doing that. No.
I know, but he paid, so I threw it up. But yeah,
sorry.
His name has been.
Sorry, you wasted your money.
His name has been thrown out there.
We are talking football this week
for the first time in a while. Yeah,
it is Michigan, Ohio State. It's number 3 versus number 2. It's the game. Yeah. We are not talking that bullshit this week. It's a football week here in Ann Arbor.
So anyway, to put a bow on that question, it's a really big deal. Jim Harbaugh is one of the top coaches in the country. Whether you love him or hate him, or if you think he's weird or whatever his involvement with, he eats, sleeps, drinks, breathes, naps. Football. And he is this team, and his team is him. They've said that all year. Sherrone has said that about Jim Harbaugh this year. Like, the team just embodies his personality, his approach, the way he goes about things. It's a big deal, man. It is. I'm confident. I'm confident in Sherrone more and the players and the leadership and the captains, but that's Jim Harbaugh, man. Like you said, it's not some low level head coach.
Yeah, and it was really, it was kind of wasn't a big part of the press conference with Sherrone Moore, but it was interesting to hear him, how he talks about how different he is with the referees than the way Jim Harbaugh is. He flat out said, like, I'm not gonna act toward the referees like Jim does. He's like, Jim has earned that. I'm a little more soft spoken, a little bit.
Right after that, he said, I want them to like me.
Yeah, I want them to like me. We want them to like us. And, to me, that said, that's another thing. Like, Jim Harbaugh isn't afraid to get in somebody's ass and to make his feelings known and to sort of work the sidelines. As a kid growing up, I remember watching Lloyd Carr that same way. Like, if he was pissed off and angry about something, the scowl on his face and the way that he would just be screaming on the sideline. Like, I mean, shit. Remember when Jim Harbaugh first got hired? I think it was his first year. He was ripping his jacket off on the sideline. He's throwing shit. I mean, that's the type of thing that type of emotion, that type of competitiveness that carries over into your team. And when you don't have that on your sideline, it's noticeable with the players. It's noticeable in the stadium. And again, I think it takes away from what I think would be a really important element of this rivalry on Saturday.
Yeah, no doubt. Do you have another one, or was that it for you?
I combined one, so I've got one more left.
And I started because so I'll do mine, then you finish up. All right. I hate even having this invasive thought in my head, Chris, but I can't help it. It's kind of a combination of everything we just talked about. Is JJ McCarthy 100% healthy, and what's that look like? Jim Harbaugh's not there. The defense against Maryland, that's not going to work against Ohio State in a lot of ways. Do you think this is a fair statement, and does it matter for Saturday? And I don't think it's drastic. I don't think either one is drastic, but I think that Michigan is trending slightly down and Ohio State is trending slightly up. Do you think that's accurate? And do you think that changes what you thought about this game for the last, 10 weeks? I mean, all year we thought like, oh, dude, Michigan's getting them again. Third year in a row. They've got their number, beat them by 20. It's in Ann Arbor, the better team, blah, 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 blah. But that's where I'm at right now. And I do know Michigan is favored, but it's not by much.
Like 4.5 or something.
Yeah, it's not a lot. 3.5, 4.5, something like that. Do you think that statement is accurate? And it might only be like this, like trending down. It's not. They're not falling off a cliff.
Yeah.
But I think you'd be lying to yourself if you think Michigan's playing as good right now as they were maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Well, here I'll say this. Yes, I think it's true to an extent, but I think a lot of what's playing a role in that is the outside circumstances. Mm-hmm. And yeah, sure, JJ McCarthy and his health, that's playing a bit of a factor. Not having Jim Harbaugh on the sideline, that's playing a factor. This team doesn't look health-wise or with its head coach like we thought it was going to look going into this game. So I think to say that you have the same level of confidence today that you had going into the season, that, would be a little bit disingenuous. And I feel that. I feel that this week. I still feel that Michigan has enough leadership on this team to take care of business and do what they need to do to get the job done. But I don't feel like it's going to be as convincing as I thought it was going to be for a long time this season. I do think the game is going to be a bit closer than I had anticipated 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks ago.
I'm not dismissing what people in the comments are saying, but if you're going to be a true Michigan fan right now, don't do the easy schedule thing with Ohio State right now, because I'm sure those are the same people who are screaming about all the people talking about Michigan's easy schedule. Or look, I'm not dismissing. I know Ohio State has not been tested in several weeks, and their scores have reflected that. While Michigan had to go to Penn State, had to go to Maryland. I understand. I do. But like I said, like you just said, I think you'd be lying to yourself if you thought they were humming along right now the same way.
You know what? Shem, I'm not going to attempt your last name. Well, Nugent Schwander. I don't know. I'm sorry. I knew I was going to slaughter it, but you make a good point. I mean, Michigan had Jim Harbaugh last year. That wasn't an element, but close game against Illinois. You lose your Heisman Trophy candidate and Blake Corum, going into the game. So yeah, there were some question marks there, but it just feels like, given what's happened around this program this year, nobody could have anticipated that Michigan would be facing the things off the field that they've had to face, have to deal with. You lose a couple of guys off the staff. You lose your head coach to a suspension. You haven't had him for 6 games this season. It just looks a little bit different than we thought. And then, for me, and I don't want to, I feel like I've talked about it a lot, but the health with JJ McCarthy is a bit of a concern, because I'm not sure how healthy that leg is, and if he's going to be able to play the type of game that a healthy JJ McCarthy would be able to play on Saturday.
Yeah. Looking back at the schedule, Penn State only lost by 8. 20-12 against Ohio State. That was at home. So Michigan won by more on the road without Jim Harbaugh. That's a nice sign. Transitive property doesn't mean dick in football. We all know that, but it's fun to look back at common opponents. Ohio State then went on the road and won at Wisconsin by 14, 24-10. And then, their last 3, dude. I mean, at Rutgers, Michigan State, Minnesota. Drilled them, but guess what? Didn't drill any of them as bad as Michigan did. 37-3 against Minnesota in Columbus. Michigan waxed them in Minneapolis. 38-3 against Michigan State in Columbus. Michigan won 49-0 in East Lansing. And then Rutgers was...
Imagine giving up points to Michigan State.
Yeah, imagine that. All 3 of them.
Can't relate.
So anyway, yes, I just... It feels different right now than I thought than it did a couple weeks ago. And I think you have to be in that same camp.
I was pounding my wait, hold on a second. I was pounding the I was pounding the table earlier this year. Pounding the table. I was convinced it was going to be another 20+ point victory for Michigan. It was going to be another ass whooping. And here I am on Monday, and I feel the butterflies a little bit. Yeah. I feel a little bit of nervousness, and it's a sign of it's the game. It's that week. There's so much riding on it, and we know damn well that Michigan is not going to get the treatment that Ohio State got last year. If Michigan loses at home by 20+ points to the Buckeyes, they're out of the playoff. They're not going to back their way in. The committee's not going to put them in. So they're not going to have, think about how crazy that is. Think about what happened to Ohio State last year in their own building, and they still got into the playoff. Can you imagine any scenario where Michigan loses this game on Saturday by 22, 23 points and still somehow makes a 4-team playoff? There's not a chance.
Yeah.
Not a chance.
Just want to throw this out there. You're welcome. New and Schwander. Look, it's a developed skill. I taught middle school for 8 years. A lot of weird names. You learn how to wade through them and figure them out. But thank you, Shem, for that point.
Well, I guess you know what. This my last question will put a nice bow on this conversation. Then we talked about how we're feeling a little bit different. Maybe not quite as confident. I don't think either of us are leaning lost. But what is your confidence level as of Monday, heading into the game against Ohio State, 1 through 5? Where would you put your confidence level on Monday?
Can I do 1 through 10? Because
Let's do 1 through 10, sure.
Because I want to shade just. It's like a 6. It's like a 6. I think Michigan's still the better team. I think if things work out how they will want them to, it's Michigan.
Yeah,
it's Michigan. But all the buts. JJ's health, the running game. You cannot let McCord operate with his receivers the way Talia Tagovailoa did with his receivers. That will not work. So there's some things there that I'm like, ooh. It's because coming off 49-0 against Michigan State, or I would have been like 8.5. Michigan's gonna rock.
Right.
Now the suspension to Harbaugh. In Sherrone we trust. Kind of like I don't want to say that, but it's different, dude. It's a different animal than having Harbaugh back there. And JJ's health, the running game again all year has been a little bit up and down. And then that defense last week against the best passing team they have faced, I was like, I don't love that. And McCord and his weapons are better. McCord's not better than Tagovailoa, but his weapons are better. That far better running game. Yeah. Just so you got to worry about that.
Going into the year, I was a 10 out of 10. Michigan's whooping that ass at home.
A 10.
A 10. I like literally 0 doubts.
10.
0 doubts in my mind that Michigan was winning that game. It was a 10 out of 10. And I've picked them to win the last 2 years. And I'm not gonna defer to that now. Not with this team, not with the best group that they've had. But I will say that my confidence level has slid to a 7. And I still feel pretty confident. But for all the reasons we talked about earlier in the show, you lose a guy like Jim Harbaugh and everything that means. There's questions about JJ McCarthy's health and how effective is he going to be. Sherrone Moore is, love the guy, think he's phenomenal, small sample size. And we've seen some things that we just wonder if Jim Harbaugh would have done it the same way.
Right.
So there's a lot of things you can point to. And then you look at the other side, Marvin Harrison Jr., Henderson at running back, weapons all over the place, really solid defense. Games at home, like Corum's last game. You got, the veterans everywhere. Like there's a lot to feel good about. There's a lot to be anxious about. And I think that's what makes this so great. You really feel alive when you feel all these emotions. But I'm going to move my confidence level to a 7. I still think it's Michigan, but I'm not as confident as I was going into the season.
Another member of the media today said that the game week, Ohio State, the anticipation, the emotion they were feeling, and he actually said, "I wish I could just fast forward to Sunday so it would be over." And I about blew up Schembechler Hall. I was like, "What the what?"
I didn't even hear that. It must have been so egregious that it just kind of was.
No. They, just to me, we were talking afterwards, not out loud.
Okay.
No, not out loud, not out loud.
Whew.
Just to me as we were leaving, and I was just like, "Who
you
are
wish
you?"
It would be over.
Couldn't handle it. Had to get out of there immediately. But there you have it. Yeah, hour and 24. It's amazing what it looks like when we can actually talk ball for a show.
Yeah,
and we even skipped over some shit. We replaced it with some other stuff though.
I think tonight we proved that you can carry a full show without talking about bullshit, and we enjoy that. But
yeah, I mean, any day of the week, I'd rather do this.
Yeah. You see, guys. You see.
We're doing burning questions. We're doing NCAA ratings. We're doing 1 through 10 scales. I mean, this is what it's about. We got a TFG in there.
A little bit of everything.
Yeah, this was needed, and hopefully we'll do 2 more shows this week, just like that one, with some different segments.
Yeah.
Bring your questions on Wednesday. We've had some really big turnouts in terms of people. Not as many questions. Homework assignment. I'm a former teacher, damn it. Everybody go out and write down 3 questions and bring them back on Wednesday so we can have some stuff to talk about.
That's right. Fan-led. Bring it.
We're not going to have any burning questions. We just did them. So we need you to help us out.
Or I'll just sit here and drink the whole time, and we'll see how that goes.
Could do that. It's the night before
leads.
Thanksgiving. My parents are going to be here.
I'll talk about the guy I sat next to on the plane on my flight home who kept itching and scratching his scalp and then smelling his fingers afterwards. What is that all about?
No.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Man. I had a guy who was coughing and hacking and clearing his throat every 8 seconds today behind me at the presser. I wanted to knock him out.
I mean, like, why are you itching your head and smelling your fingers afterwards? It's a weird thing to be doing. Like, I was like this close to being like, is something fucking wrong with you? Directly next to me. And I knew it was going to be a problem because right when I was headed to my seat, he was picking his nose before I sat down and then proceeded to scratch for an hour from Chicago to Detroit. It was quite a scene. What?
Could you smell it? It's an important question.
I was leaning into the aisle as far as I possibly could. I didn't want any shrapnel coming off and landing on me.
That's a rough hour-long flight right there.
That was brutal. Wow.
Well, we'll talk about more body parts and orifices on Wednesday if you guys don't have questions. So remember your homework assignment, people, and we'll see you Wednesday night at 7.